Time to stop the chaos.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Time to stop the chaos now.
Dump-a-dump-a-dump-a-dump-dump.
On Fundraising HayDay, we talk a lot about how grant seeking gets more complex every year. Make 2023 the year you finally get a system to track grant deadlines and information.
It's time to stop the chaos with Grant Holster. It was developed for grant professionals by grant professionals, which makes all the difference.
First month is always free. And Grant Holster is giving our listeners a 25% discount on the entire first year of your subscription. Just enter HayDay, all one word, HayDay, as your coupon at checkout, and you'll get that amazing discount.
And they have a hands-on demo at grantholster.com that lets you explore the platform on your own. But if you want someone to walk you through it, they also have folks that can do that.
So if you've been struggling with spreadsheets, clunky applications with a million workarounds, or just keeping your deadlines on sticky notes, head over to grantholster.com and take a look.
And remember to enter the coupon code HayDay at checkout to get your 25% discount for a full year.
And stop the chaos.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Well, hello there. I am Kimberly Hayes-Muka.
And I'm Amanda Day. And you're listening to Season 6 of the Fundraising HayDay podcast.
We're here for many different reasons today.
Lots of reasons.
But we are
100
here.
reasons.
100 reasons. We are here to help you make sense of the complex world of grant writing and fundraising. Yes! Including how to raise funds, win grants, and work together to change philanthropy for the better!
And new episodes will be dropping every other week. And of course, there's going to be silly sound effects, songs. For those of you watching live today, there's going to be some
really tacky accessorizing.
Okay. If you're just listening, you might want to head over to YouTube and check us out because we're here for the 100th episode.
We are here.
Because learning doesn't have to be boring, y'all.
This podcast is brought to you by our Season 6 sponsor, D.H. Leonard Consulting and Grant Writing Services. Their team can help make grants less stressful by assisting you with grant readiness and training, grant research, grant writing, mock review, as well as providing numerous DIY resources, guides, and templates. Don't let grants stress you out. Did you know that with every Fundraising HayDay episode, we create a coordinating blog post on their website, dhleonardconsulting.com. Check it out today.
It's a big day for Fundraising HayDay.
Woohoo! It's our 100th episode. Dun, 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 dun.
I can't believe we didn't write a song for this.
It's the 100th episode.
We may be just a little full of ourselves today. So, yeah. But we're excited. Whether you're a first-time listener or if you've been with us since episode 1.
If you're a first-time listener, gosh, I am sorry.
Yeah, this is not normal.
Or is it?
Or is it? No, it's not. So, give us 1 second as we, are you ready to?
I think we're ready for not the final countdown, but the final costume change. So
yes.
If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Podbean or our website, hold please.
Yes. If you're only listening, their masks and
Rustling
lots of
noises.
shiny, frilly things were involved in our look. But it's time to let go of that. So
I can
up the hair.
again. It's hard work being that glamorous.
It is. There we go. Okay, so Kimberly, be honest. When we first dropped season 1 in November of 2018, way back in time, did you think we had 100 episodes in us?
Honey, 100 episodes. We have 1,000 episodes. We have not yet begun to fight. I am so not worried about our content.
Okay, I'll be honest, and this is one of those things where
opposites attract.
Why we work so well together is, even though I was the one who asked,
it was her idea,
but I was so limited I was just thinking it's a how-to, and after a while you do run out of how-to, so I never would have imagined we'd have this many episodes, but you were the one that were like, oh honey, how-tos is just part of it.
An important part.
It is. But you're like, there's things that we need to fix.
There's things we need to rant about.
And burn down. I don't know.
And rebuild and renew and restructure and rethink and then do it all again.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just been so fun.
It's been a wild ride. A good ride.
And it's not over yet.
Clearly not. We got 900 more episodes to go, apparently.
Like a fine Toyota Corolla or Honda Civic.
We're just
getting warmed up at 100,000. You're just getting warmed up. We're just getting warmed up. Coming into our own, coming into our stride. I'm here for it.
We're feeling it.
Yes.
I like it.
Yes.
So
I was, of course, thinking beyond 100 episodes because there's just so many things to talk about and so many things to explore that are related to grants, related to fundraising, related to the workplace, related to consulting practice, related to life and leadership skills and all the good things. I could make a list, but the list would be way too long. So just rest assured that we're going to be sharing a few lists.
Yes.
On social media, right? Yeah. Different platforms, different ideas. Do we want to talk about those things?
Well, we're just going to share some of our top 5 favorite episodes and guests and different things like that. So we haven't nailed it all down yet, but yes, there'll be some lists of favorite things over the years.
And books too.
Oh, books, always books.
We're going to make it. We'll have a list of all the, because any episode with a book in it is going to, it's always going to be attractive to me. But we're going to have a book list of the books that were mentioned, and most all of the books that were mentioned as far as I could find in our episode since 2018. Yeah. So if you want to go back in time and go check them out, you can do that.
Yes. So check out all of the lists and all the things. And if you have some favorites that either we overlooked or maybe you agree with our lists, be sure to let us know because we love to hear back from our readers.
I know
readers, listeners. I'm on the book.
Readers,
book
listeners, whatever, whoever and however you are. If you're watching and you saw the silver stuff, I'm really sorry. But I'm not sorry because I thought we looked great. But losing my train of thought and getting it back now, I am saying that one of my favorite podcasts, I won't call it out by name, but it's the one where we both cried.
Yes,
I'm just saying.
I know that's in the top 5 lists. Yes.
So, but it wasn't
not a bad cry.
Not a bad cry. It was a happy, joyful moment.
Yes.
It was a beautiful moment, which was so unexpected. Those many years ago when we were sitting over lunch with some spectacular onion rings and a killer kale salad. I think maybe you had a burger. I'm not sure.
Yes.
And
yin yang, vegetarian, meat lover.
Yeah. Little bit country, I'm a little bit rock and roll, taking you back. So over the years, we're talking about evaluation today.
That is today's topic, by the way. We're not just talking about the 100th episode.
We're not just talking about ourselves, although
we're going to talk about evaluation.
Yeah. But in getting to our 100th episode of the podcast, we're talking about evaluation as it pertains to programming, particularly in grant reporting, post-award management, going over some things, sharing some stories about things over the years, challenges, tips, et cetera, et cetera. But we also thought we could use this episode as sort of, we're using those same evaluation techniques to look at the podcast.
Yes. Yep.
So one of the things...
there's lots of things we can use to evaluate a podcast. Yeah.
So one of the things we're looking at, or we do look at regularly now, we have qualitative and quantitative measures. We'll be talking about that later. But for the podcast, as in program evaluation, we're looking at also numbers served. And in our case, for podcast, that's number of downloads, first week, first month, over the year. What's the biggest, where our audience is coming from, who our listeners are, who we serve. It might not surprise you that the largest audience is from the United States.
What?
I know, shocker. But
within the United States, guess where the biggest state where most of our listeners are from? You want to take any guesses?
California, Georgia. No, really?
Florida.
Florida, what?
Yeah, so shout out to our Florida Sunshine State listeners.
Wow. Do you think Florida Man is listening?
Maybe.
Florida Man found
listening to Fundraising
HayDay while rolling down the street in a shopping cart with a firecracker.
And now no one from Florida listens to us anymore.
I'm sorry. But y'all have to admit that Florida man is special, because I want to point out that there's not a Georgia man.
True.
Or Georgia woman.
True that.
I mean, and there's plenty of crazy here, and there's plenty of eccentricity, but there's something special about Florida. Thank you, Florida listeners. But we also have people tuning in from Canada, I'm going to glance at my list because it's hard for me to believe. United Kingdom. Okay. That's not hard to believe.
Makes sense.
India. Okay. Mongolia and Italy.
Yeah.
Hello. We are happy that you're listening to us. We wonder if someone using a VPN network and just routing it somewhere.
I have no idea. And I mean, there's tons of other countries, but those are the top ones. And
shout out Mongolia. Hey,
we're here for you.
We are here for you. So we want to see where people are coming from, who we're serving.
Yeah.
As a part of an evaluation. And so in a more qualitative way, then we want to look at, what are people's thoughts and feelings and experiences? And one of the ways we gather that is by reviews on Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to contribute to that qualitative research, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. Also, we have feedback from social media posts. Yep. Another way we're gathering that sort of more qualitative data, subjective, people's thoughts, feelings, and opinions, email responses, in-person responses. It was the first time in November of 2022. We had been, Seattle the year before at the Grant Professionals Association's National Annual Conference was a little different.
It was very small.
It was small.
Yeah.
But this year was the first, 2022 rather, November was the first time we'd gone back in person. And I had some, surprising and wonderful in-person feedback and response.
Meetings.
It was really good. It was really good. So again, if you're talking about evaluation, there are just a lot of different ways to kind of, I was going to say slice that onion. Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Peel the onion.
Slice it.
Peeling, slicing. There's a way to onionize almost everything.
Onionize.
And onion rings are delicious. And onion rings were what we were eating when we decided to start the podcast. So there you have it. Another way we're measuring is also, we have diverse revenue streams, and how is that working out? We have sponsors that have supported our work, and people who have purchased ads, and companies that have purchased ads, tracking that. That's another way we're looking at how we're doing in terms of how different communities are stepping forward to support us. And those are all some key components of the podcast evaluation. Another way that we evaluate it is to check in with each other about whether or not we want to keep doing this. And the answer so far has been yes, since 2018. And I'm making light of it, but that's also an important part of evaluation, is looking at,
should we still keep doing this? Is there value?
The staff, how can we change it? How can we make it better? So I think that we've talked a little bit about quantitative and qualitative. That's kind of a process evaluation too. Yeah. Not only is what is our own personal satisfaction out of it, what are ways we can improve? Because we always are looking to improve. Any good evaluation of any program, that's what you're looking for.
Yep. So evaluation is just an important component of any program you're doing, from podcasts to grant programs to any kind of type of programs for your organization. And even if you don't have to formally, I'm trying to combine. Formally.
I'm here for you.
I was trying to formally.
She's okay. She's okay.
Formally evaluate words. This is why I'm a grant writer some days, because I can fix those things.
It's all good.
Formally evaluate your program, even if it doesn't have to be formal. It's always a good idea to evaluate what it is you're doing. Because like Kimberly said with the podcast, we need to check it every year. Like, are we both still getting out of what we're putting into it? Because if the answer is no, we either need to change something, or we may need to stop doing it, right? So same thing with your programs. Are they working the way they're supposed to? Are they helping the people they're supposed to be helping?
And have the needs changed, which is going to be pretty likely.
Yeah. So that's why we're covering evaluations today. Because yes, vital to grants, but also any work you're doing, evaluation should be considered.
I'm laughing because you've got glitter in your eyebrows.
My glittery mask.
With good times. So when you're thinking about the purpose of evaluation, we've covered some key components of it, but every grant, as Amanda said, every grant should have some kind of evaluation built into it. Really what drives the extent of it is how big the program is, how big the budget is. If you have a federal grant, evaluating, if it's a Department of Education grant about curriculum evaluation, you're going to have a crap ton of evaluation dollars and third-party evaluation where you're not evaluating your own program because, well, that would be like, yes, the curriculum I wrote is doing great. Thank you. May I have another $10 million grant? I mean, I'm not saying everybody does that, but
probably haven't.
So whether it's that kind of grant, that large scale, or whether it's something really smaller like a $2,000 grant to improve the storage facility of your church's food pantry.
Yeah.
There needs to be some kind of evaluation component, formal or informal. Most funders are going to want to know whatever scale. And I would say a lot of individual donors would like to know if they're contributing toward a particular cause.
Yeah.
Versus just supporting the mission of the organization. Mainly the questions you want to have answered are, my favorite is, how will you measure success? And it's like, measuring success is super important and to have things in place, but also you want to measure failure because really, certainly
that's what you learn from.
That's what you learn from. You can feel really good about success and you can learn from it too, but addressing, being able to honestly get at what is working and what isn't working and looking at the whys behind things.
Yeah.
That's kind of what evaluation is all about. And I'll say this, because anytime I say no funder will ever, then someone's going to be like, in 1985, I worked with a funder. I'm like, I feel you, I support you, but I've never worked with a funder that has said, if this program fails, we're pulling funding and we don't want to know you anymore. I mean, have you?
No.
And I'm not saying it hadn't happened. I think it might happen a lot more with maybe like major donors who give with strings attached, but there's no formal agreement that maybe that's it. But basically most funders they want the ideas to succeed. And again, we're talking about programs versus buying a piece of equipment.
Well, and I think with funders taking things because your program failed, it wasn't solely because your program failed. It was probably because it failed and you weren't doing reporting on time. Or because
someone stole the money.
Stole the money. There was a lot of things, but if you do everything else right, you report on time, you're honest, you're truthful, and everything that's happening, you're reporting all the things accurately, but it's just not working. I don't think 99.999% of funders are not going to yank your funding because of that, because they all know anytime you submit a grant, it's your best guess based on experience and knowledge and track records, or sometimes sometimes they want pilot programs that are brand new initiatives that nobody's ever tried because they want to try something new.
Maybe it works. And if it works, everyone can find out about it.
If it doesn't, then no one else needs to do it.
Or lessons learned, here's how we'll improve it. I mean, it's basic. It's basic stuff. But I can see where it can be very frightening for people who are not familiar with it or who have the fear that funding is going to be pulled and reputations will be sullied if the program isn't perfect. And again, I'm not talking about like criminal misuse of funds and supplanting and commingling and just straight up stealing.
Yeah.
We have other podcast episodes that deal with that.
Yeah.
But this is just regular evaluation. I think a key take home is to not be afraid of the outcomes. And any funder that only wants positive all the time and is not really a funder that's in touch with the kind of reality that I've experienced in my nonprofit work.
Absolutely. So generally funders are going to want to know, did you do what you said you were going to do? And did you meet your goals and objectives? That's ultimately what you're evaluating at the end of the day. Yes, you can evaluate all kinds of things, but ultimately it boils down to that. So the time to figure out what your evaluation is going to look like is not after you've gotten the grant. Like you probably aren't going to get the grant if you haven't figured it out
yet. Because most of them, they're going to ask about it.
Yes.
As well they should.
Yes. So you want to figure that out before you submit the application. So one of the things you should ask is, how are we going to handle the evaluation? Are we going to do it in-house? Or are we going to hire a third-party evaluator?
Although sometimes that's decided for you for these big grants.
Absolutely. So that's the first step, is looking, does the funder dictate how it's done? Because if the funder says hire a third-party evaluator, guess what you're doing?
Well, I mean, you got to be just told to ride the ride.
Exactly. But if they don't tell you, then it's up to you. And it's a decision your organization has to make based on, do you have the people that can do the evaluations in-house? Do they have the time? Do they have the resources? All those sorts of things, right? Everywhere I've worked, even with all the clients I've worked with, I have always done in-house evaluations. But I have not worked at K-12 school systems. I haven't worked at a large university.
Research hospitals.
No, I haven't done any of that sort of thing. So like when I worked in local government, we always evaluated in-house, but typically we're doing projects like maybe we're doing a DUI task force. And so we're trying to reduce the number of DUIs taking place, number of DUI related accidents, injuries, and fatalities in our community. Well, to evaluate that, we're going to put our program in place, and then we're hoping that the number of those things go down, right? We're going to increase arrests so we can decrease accidents, injuries, and fatalities.
Yeah.
Well, to evaluate that, we look at our baseline year. We've got all of our data, and we have the data because police officers have to report on this. So we've got it all. And then we do the program, and then we crunch the numbers again, and we can see, do they go up, down, stay the same, what happens? So programs like that, pretty easy to evaluate in-house because we've got the wherewithal, we've got the information at our fingertips, everything we need we can do. So there's
a lot of that data like public access data. Some of it like crime statistics and things.
It may not be like you can go straight to the website and get it, but you can always
through. I mean, that makes a difference in terms of accountability.
Yes. Well, they have to report this data to, I think, FBI and different things. There's certain things that are mandated by the state. So yeah, so it's stuff we have to do anyway. So yeah, so it may be one of those things where you're like, we already have the ability. Like when we would do maybe adding lanes to a road because we're trying to increase people's ability to quickly get through, from point A to point B. Well, our engineers on staff could measure traffic and could tell you it takes you on average 30 minutes to get from here to here. We do our project, they remeasure the traffic, and now it's only taking us 15 minutes.
Is that what those little blinky things are with the little things you drive over, the little wires?
Yes, they can measure time, they can measure
it's all coming clear.
Traffic counts, and that's what, whenever you go over those little hole on the road, there you go. So again, it's a decision to make in-house, hiring somebody. If you do hire an evaluator, a lot of times the grants will pay for it if you have to hire an outside evaluator. So
I would also say make sure to build that into your cost.
Yes.
Which gets back to your point of think about it while you're writing it, and don't just put a sentence in like, we will use qualitative and quantitative methods to assess the effectiveness of the program, and we will, at the end of each grant cycle, evaluate the results and use that to improve our program. Not that I've ever written anything like that before, and actually I haven't, but I've reviewed things like that. And I'm like, you all have to be a little more specific than that. And also making sure that it ties into the goals and objectives. And I don't want to jump too far ahead, but that's like a thing of mine, is to make sure that your evaluation, you're not under-evaluating or over-evaluating, that it fits in with the available resources and the scope of the program. Absolutely. And it measures something
tangible.
Important. It measures something important. I have no idea what I was going to say.
Important.
I'm voting on important and formally and important.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. That it measures something.
I'm rubbing off on her today.
I know, right? It's like, where did that come from? What did I have at lunch? I'm feeling funny. Amanda did keep giving me little bits of chocolate. I'm not sure.
I don't know what the problem is.
So what are some other things that folks need to think about?
Think about if you are going to hire an outside evaluator. That sometimes it can be hard. When I've taught teaching classes, when I've taught grant writing classes, and we cover this part, a lot of times people will say, we had the hardest time finding a good evaluator. How do we do that? And a couple of recommendations I would always make is, first of all, you could put it out to bid just like you would anything else. And if you don't work in the local government world, that may not be something you're used to, but you can advertise and say, hey, we're looking for somebody to do X, Y, and Z. Please submit a proposal. So you may get some traction that way. If you've got a college or university anywhere near you, oftentimes people on staff there do that on the side. So that's a great way, is to reach out that way. Ask organizations that are similar to you. If you're a K-12 school system, ask the school system one county over, like, hey, have you had a good evaluator recently? If so, do you mind sharing their information? I'd also say too, because there is an organization for everybody.
An association for everything.
Absolutely. There is one called the American Evaluation Association, and their website is eval.org. And you can go there, and up at the very top, there's a button you can push called Find an Evaluator, and you can look based on where in the country they're located, what their subject matter expertise is, all kinds of different keyword searches.
And this does not constitute our wholehearted recommendation of any and everyone on the list.
No,
We're just giving you information.
The only thing you have to do to be on that list is to be a member of their organization. Yeah. So I could join today. Would you want to hire me for your higher ed curriculum development evaluation? No, you would not, because I know nothing about that. So that's a good way to find evaluators. You still need to do your homework and figure out, get past experience, get, references, get their resume. You know what you're supposed to do to find somebody good to hire.
Just like any sort of job or any sort of contract.
But them just being on the list does not make them an expert.
Just
but there are experts on that list.
That's true.
So, and if you're going to do it in-house, I highly recommend you figure out before you submit that grant who is going to be the one responsible, or what team of people is going to be responsible for collecting the data. Because I tell you from previous years' experience, if you don't, everybody's going to assume that you're doing it. Well, you're the grant person.
Super common.
You're the grant person.
Common. Yeah, and it's like, right, Holmes, I am the grant person. That's an old one. I'm a grant person, not an evaluation person.
Yeah.
So
and they don't even have to be an evaluation person. But again, going back to my examples, if I'm doing traffic counts, I have no idea how to do that. That's why the engineers that I worked with were the ones doing the traffic counts. They needed to be doing it, collecting the data. Now, could I take that data, put it in pretty charts, and submit it to the funder in the way that they wanted it? Absolutely. Teamwork.
Someone else is gathering the data.
So figure that out early on. I'm just telling you.
And don't unless you just really want to, you don't have to let it all default to you. I think that's a take-home message, because that's happening. And I'm just going to leave it there.
There you go.
That's a great career development, personal growth opportunity.
Absolutely.
So as I alluded to earlier, when we're talking about qualitative and quantitative, those are sort of the main games and evaluation. Sometimes it's called formative and summative. And then there's process in the middle, but it's basically, to break it down into the biggest buckets, right? It's things you can measure through numbers.
Tangibly.
And things you can measure in common themes and gathering information that can be actually highly individual. Now, obviously, there are people who are super educated and have their PhDs in all kinds of qualitative evaluations. So I am grossly oversimplifying, but I think both are really important. I think time and time again, qualitative gets neglected instead of quantitative. Also, you have to be reasonable and look at your program.
Yeah.
But where qualitative, and also that sort of that subset that could be either quantitative or qualitative, the process, sometimes process evaluation and qualitative get overlooked, and those can actually be the why the program succeeds or it doesn't succeed. Right? Like if you have a program that has a fantastic after school program, you've got counselors trained in, maybe you're serving children from neighborhoods or from different ethnicities that have been just completely excluded from a lot of traditional programs, whether due to race or some other category. And so systematically underfunded areas, and they're coming in, and you've got counselors that are highly trained, you've got all the activities, you've got all the things. But your outcomes maybe aren't what you thought, or your attendance is not what you thought. If you're not looking at the why aren't people able to come? Is it because transportation is such a huge barrier? Do you know what I mean? It's like you could measure pre and post around a specific curriculum, or was there increases in awareness or knowledge or behavioral changes? But if your group that is going through the program is only half the size that you thought it would be based on your projections and the demonstrated need, if you're not exploring the why is that happening? It kind of sounds, I think it gets overlooked, even though it's super common sense that you'd want to know the why.
Yeah.
But to be fair, a lot of funders are wanting you to measure quantitatively all the time, every time. I'm suggesting, whether or not they ask for it, build it into your program. And you may be going, you just told us we were not evaluators. I feel you, I see you, but I'm also saying that as a grant professional, you can help drive some of those things and explain the importance of that in getting
to the root causes of why things work and why they don't work.
Yeah.
If that's an issue. Again, if you are mainly writing equipment grants, for fire trucks or for medical equipment, and that's what you do, your evaluation is a lot simpler. In most respects, did you get it or not? Did you buy the thing or not?
Yeah.
However, if you're looking at longer term, what kind of equipment do you need? And you're not building in some kind of feedback loop from the people that use the equipment, the people that the equipment serves, the training around it, the reliability, all those kinds of things that people might think of like soft data.
Yeah.
That's really necessary though, because you want to know, is this still the right purchase? Is this still the right training? Is the training any good? Do people learn anything? Do people go to the training? Where, all of those things can be kind of that sort of softer side of evaluation, like customer satisfaction, client satisfaction, employee satisfaction, that kind of gets overlooked. But I feel like that's where the whys of things live, is actually finding out really why does this work or doesn't work, or how could it be better?
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things. You can cut that a lot of different ways in terms of your methodology. Focus groups themselves, I think they have to be structured very specific ways.
Yeah.
In the academic sense, but if you're gathering people together to ask their opinions and it's facilitated by a person that knows what they're doing and is reflective of the population or in some way connected and is able to do that and gather that information and transcribe it, you got some common themes. Could be observations. How I'm getting back to the equipment thing, but it's like, how easy is it to use this? How are people using it? Did you get this great new improvement for your primary care clinic and no one uses it because no one knows how, or it's a real pain and you didn't know? Testimonials can be, you can gather those a lot of different ways. It could be parents in the line picking up their kids from the after school program. Is one way to talk about that. You can have, I'm working with a program right now in the program design phase. We're establishing the need, building the program, and then going to do a matchmaking for grants. And it's equine assisted learning.
Oh, wow.
So it's super, super interesting, super exciting. And one of the things they want to build in, it's to help with student retention at a college, particularly first generation students. So they're building in there, and qualitatively there, if they have tablets or phones, well, I mean, hello, who does not have a phone? But using that and having, beyond recording selfies with the horses, because how fun will that be? It would be, what was your experience, maybe before or after, even doing like a TikTok style video, maybe without the dancing, because that might scare the horses. But an idea of building that loop into ways to gather information. It doesn't always have to be a checklist or a piece of paper on a clipboard, although it can be when you're asking someone's opinion. Also, if you've written any grants before and done any kind of reporting, you're always asked for success stories, which I think is important. But I'm also like, what about the not successful stories? That's where you can get a lot of learning done. But depending on the size of your organization, you can gather that kind of information, sometimes in conjunction with your marketing team.
Yeah.
Because the same kinds of stories of people finding their ways, using their own assets and what your organization provides to take another positive step in their lives. Those are the kinds of things that are helpful for funders or for people just interested in learning more about the organization, including people who might benefit from that. My I only have one opinion I only have one thing to say about anything. How many have you met me? But I would say gathering success stories, you just really want to be mindful and compassionate and not pushing into someone's personal space and using making them somehow relive trauma. In the interest of a good story. And this is not I know we have to get to so many other things, but I just want to put that out there. It's not, give me your best sob story or tell me about the time, you were kidnapped and like,
well, I think it's in giving whoever you ask, being very clear from the beginning that if they don't feel like it or if they don't want their story used. Because this wasn't for a grant, but I helped one of my clients, I helped them do their annual report. And so there's always the annual report, the big middle feature story is usually someone who received services and how their life changed because of it. And one of the times the executive director had given a name to me. And it actually wasn't her, it was her mother that received the services. And because her mother didn't speak English. And so I was going to talk to the daughter who was an adult. And she also there was another lady that kind of had helped their family and kind of adopted them and were helping them with different things. And this lady was so excited to have her story told because it really was a beautiful story. But when I explained to the lady from the get-go, I was like, because she was like, I'm just talking to you. And I was like, well, yes, but I'm writing an article that's going to be published here and it's going to reach this many people. It's going to be on the website. It's going to be here. And at that point, she was like, yeah, I don't think I want my mother's business out there like that. And I immediately, I was like, that is absolutely okay. I'm glad she got the help she needs. Thanks. And I'm like, I need somebody else. Now, the next gentleman's names they passed, he wanted the world to know about, but that's a personal choice. So definitely, I think part of it is not just don't pressure them and just say,
and be respectful, even in the approach.
Yeah.
Because not everybody would want to share at that level and respect that. And I think also I found it working directly with the direct service providers. Because again, I'm coming from a health and human service background and you want to respect all sorts of rights to privacy and everything. But working directly with the people who are working with the clients is a good starting point.
Yeah.
Like you said, just explaining and so when you move, it's a little more cut and dried when you move into the world of quantitative, and it's probably something that we're all pretty familiar with. I'm just going to list out some things. Pre and post testing, right? Something before the program or intervention, something after, looking at the difference. Could be performance reports of case studies where you're just really going into in depth about a particular population or issue. Activity logs, again, tracking, that's sort of your numbers served.
The police information, the police story I told, that's activity logs is what drove that data.
Interviews, surveys, questionnaires, in particular, things that can be counted are things that fall under the quantitative section. It's good to have a mixture of the two. As I said before, most funders lean heavily toward quantitative. My argument is you should also include qualitative to help get the program stronger. Yeah. And Amanda has a story.
Well, because I also think you need to look at, what's the grant funding source, what's your program, what's your purpose, because not everything is going to have this, I can pre and post test, or I can count these sorts of things, right?
If it's a short program, if it's if it's having the equine assisted learning experience, just not as a semester long, but you're going in for a 1 3-hour session to kind of, I'm not expecting big behavioral change from that, no. But it could be a transformative experience, but it'd be kind of weird to have a formal, and very expensive, to have a formal pre and post and measuring self-efficacy and leadership development for 3 hours.
Yeah. Well, the very first time I wrote a grant it was a summer camp program called Camp Happy Hearts. It is a summer camp for kids with disabilities, whether physical or mental or just a variety of disabilities. But these are just for kids who cannot go to the typical day camp because they just don't get the attention that they need. And so Camp Happy Hearts was much more focused. You had one camp counselor for every 4 kids. Instead, normally it's like 1-to-10 ratio, right? So it's much, they don't, most camps, like I remember as a kid going, you'd go to the pool all day, you'd go to the park, there'd be a person that was in charge, but you're kind of running free. You can do that if you've got kids of a certain age and certain expectations of behavior and need.
I made a lot of lanyards, but I'm with you. I'm with you. And pot holders. But go ahead.
Yes, I did lots of things. But for these kids, you couldn't do that, right? So camp was much more expensive. So we're going after grants to help offset the cost of camp. Well, the first grant we got was a county grant that just basically you could provide all kinds of services to county residents with this grant. And so the majority of our participants lived in the county. Great, fine. Well, they wanted, us to evaluate the program. They wanted goals and objectives to evaluate. Well, what do you evaluate other than kids got to go to camp that normally couldn't go to camp? And so I started talking to some of the program people and the director of the program. And, they just kept coming back to, these kids get to go to camp. They get to experience camp. That is what we're doing. And I'm like, yes, but we need something a little more tangible. It doesn't have to be anything like super scientific, but for example, a lot of the kids that came to camp were autistic, but we're not guaranteeing these kids are going to do well in school next year. We're not studying autism. We're not doing anything like, we're letting these kids go to camp and have a good summer. Right. So finally what I ended up writing was that, I want to say it was something like 80% of campers who attend camp 4 weeks or more during the summer, because a lot of kids would come the entire summer.
Time,
some would just come for a week, but some would stay for the whole summer. But that they would improve their self-efficacy in some way, shape, or form. And the way we measured that was we would talk to the parents and talk about what is something y'all are trying to work on. And it could have been, we're working on making eye contact when we speak to little Timmy, or we're working on Sarah here needs to learn how to share, or something like that. And so that's what we would do. Is the counselors, we had a report that they would do every day that would go home to the parents, that would just kind of talk about like, hey, today here's the activities we did, just stuff for parents. Sure. And at the bottom we added a observation of improvement, and if little Sarah made eye contact, we would write it down. Now, is that scientific? Does that mean Sarah's going to make eye contact tomorrow too? Maybe not, but we saw there was something we were working towards. We saw an improvement. We counted it. And our funder was fine with it because, again, it was like a $15,000 grant. It wasn't anything huge.
Oh, heck yeah.
It was a county grant that was just to, improve the lives of the residents. It was very wide open. So we were able to get away with that because of all the things.
I don't think it's
No, I don't think it is. It fit perfectly with what we were doing.
The scope of the grant. It's not getting away with the thing. It's actually very creative.
It is. Well, I'm not going to get a National Science Foundation grant to do something like that.
Probably not.
Which,
that's okay.
Fair enough. That's not the purpose.
A National Science Foundation.
Exactly. So, again, yes, it's good to have a mix. Yes, you want to have this and that. At the end of the day, though, you've got to look at who's your funder, what's your program, what can you actually measure, and you got to go with it.
It's true. It's true.
Anyway, so evaluation reporting. Oh, is there something else?
No, I think we're good.
So, Kimberly mentioned this really briefly, but evaluation reporting, which this is when you've gotten the grant and you've got to do your usually monthly, quarterly, whatever reports to your funder. Usually they want to have some sort of summative and formative component. And easy to remember, summative is like summary. So at the end of every grant, you're going to have some sort of report that kind of highlights the whole thing. And I've had some grants that only have a summative report because it's a small grant. It's maybe only 6 months or a year. The funders are like, just give us one report. We're good. I love those funders.
I do, but I'm also arguing for internally.
Oh, don't wait. Oh, yeah. I still collect stuff monthly because I'm not waiting till the end. But the formative is those ongoing reports. And funders usually want that because they want to see that there's progress. So don't be surprised. And make sure when you're building your evaluation, you've got to think about both components because you don't want to go, hey.
You don't want to get to the end, and if it was a roaring success or a failure, or if it was mediocre, you don't
even know
why.
Yeah.
Then there you go. So to back up just a step, I just wanted to quickly go over some things to include when you're writing the evaluation sections. We talked about the different kinds of evaluation.
Yeah.
Talked about the purposes, where to go, what to do, and all that. When you're writing the section, obviously it depends on the grant. How much room do you have? How many words do you have? How big is the grant? Is evaluation a built-in component, or do they just say, how will you measure success, which is 500 words or 250 words or
200 characters.
Oh my God. So obviously the key things to include is you want to let your funder know if you're doing it in-house or you're hiring a third-party evaluator. It's a big old program. Chances are they're going to want you to hire a third party. But particularly for private funding, it's just sort of, here's how we're handling this. If you are hiring a third party evaluator, make sure to include the kind of skills that you're looking for. And the larger grants that may be in sort of the human resources personnel section, contract section, but just make sure that it also appears in maybe a shortened form, depending on the application itself, in the evaluation plan or the evaluation section of your grant.
a lot of times they'll ask, have you already hired your evaluator? And if so, they want to know what their credentials are. And if you haven't, then what is it you're looking for, right? Well, we don't have one, but we want someone that has this level of experience.
And sometimes in the evaluation section, it's all together. They ask all the questions, or it's very general. But wherever it is asked for, make sure that when you're gathering your evaluation data, it matches or corresponds with the grant cycle and the request of the funder for evaluation.
Yes.
I want my clients to know, and I want the direct service providers and program people to know, my organization. We want to gather data in a way that makes sense for everyone, so that you're not, well, we have to evaluate for the XYZ Foundation. Okay, well, this one is for the other, this is for the Q Foundation, and they have a different, we're looking at 3 separate things. If both of those grants are less than $100,000 each, you're tying up a lot of time.
Yeah.
So sort of coordinating that, tying to back to the after school program. Well, that's going to be tied to the academic year. That's pretty straightforward. But looking at, quarterly and monthly or weekly, whatever plan reporting that already exists, I try very, very hard to tie that to what the funder requests, so that there's no duplication of effort. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And share what you're measuring, obviously, and how you're measuring it.
Yeah.
And I would say I always want to err on be as specific as possible there. And I'm also a big fan of grant writing as a team sport, and you should not be, unless you happen to have a PhD in evaluation and lots of experience, and you're writing grants as well. But if you don't know anything about evaluation, I don't know that having your client or your boss say to you, well, you just make up something, is going to be the way to go.
Probably not.
Because I've even said, y'all need to tell, because I am from Atlanta, y'all need to tell me what it is you're doing, because you do not want me making it up.
Because we can.
Oh, sure. But is it going to be useful or feasible or reasonable? I don't know, because I'm not running your program day to day. So just putting that out there, that is a budget building is a time for that. Evaluation planning is a time for that. Program description. There's always time to have a grants team and get that good information.
Absolutely.
So what else do we need to know about reporting?
The last thing I would say, when you report back to your funders, meet your reporting deadlines. If it's due on the 30th of every month, try to get it in by the 30th of every month. Because again, I've never had a funder come to me and go, oh, you're 2 days late. I'm taking all your funding away. But
I've had them say, you are 2 days late. And I haven't.
Oh yeah, they'll tell you. But
you're right. I'm on it.
Yeah, but to them, it's a red flag that, like, oh, if you can't turn reports in on time, what else are you doing wrong? So at first it may be a warning, but then it may be a, hey, we're going to come do a site visit, or hey, I want to come look at your books, or so. I don't ever want to give my funder a reason. They can always come, but I'm not trying to make them come. In a
positive way, like come see our successes and let's talk. Let's talk about lessons learned, but not. We don't think you're handling the money.
Exactly. You want to be honest in all your reporting. If things are not going to plan, that's okay. Like we talked about earlier, a funder is not going to come necessarily and yank it all away because things didn't go the way you thought they would go. I don't think I've ever had a grant go perfectly the way I wrote it. There's always something. Even, whether it's a weather-related issue,
things take longer. It takes longer to hire people than you think.
Something's on back order, or they stop making something,
or someone who was essential to the program gets sick and is not able to. You have to make a change in personnel. It happens.
So things happen. So just be honest, because what you don't want to do is lie. And I think we talked about this on one of our ripped from the headline stories, but a couple of years ago, Duke University, they had some money to do research on lab rats.
Millions and millions and millions of dollars.
And because based on the reports they were doing, they were getting more grants to continue the studies. Well, it turns out they were lying. It was really one lady who was lying on the reports about what was happening in these studies. And so they ended up having to pay back like $33.5 million or something. No, $116 million.
I was going to say.
It was $116 million.
It was something
the whistleblower got $33.5 million for blowing the whistle. But that's a different thing. But again.
Excuse me, I'm going whistle shopping. Bye.
But again, just be honest. And I've even had funders that will say, thank you for letting us know, because we can fix this. We've seen this 100 times. And, a lot of times you're like, oh my gosh, we're the only one this has happened to. They're going to think we're horrible. No, we're human. things go wrong. So
That's
be honest.
very true.
And it's just better to share what's going wrong and let them help you fix it. Because at some point, even if you are hiding it, at some point it is going to come to light, because you're going to have to do a final report, or you're going to have to prove something, and you're not going to be able to. So why lie?
Because people are afraid they're going to
Get
the money taken away. Straight up.
Here's my quick story of I had a United States Tennis Association funding to do some free Spanish-speaking tennis lessons.
Oh, yeah.
We had nobody sign up. 0 people sign up. I didn't even wait till the report. I called my funder immediately. I'm like, so this happened. I fully expected them to go, yeah, we're going to take our money back. But instead, she was like, okay, what do you think went wrong? And we kind of brainstormed, and she said, why don't you go back and talk to your program people, see if we can try it again. And we did. We did some different things. It was a beautiful thing. But I think the whole reason she was like, that's fine, is because I was just very honest, like, hey, this is going on.
We did this
Help.
and it didn't work. Yeah.
So just because you think it's unique to you, they've probably seen it a million times. They probably know how to fix it. So just submit your reports, do it on time, be honest in all things, and chances are you'll be able to keep your money.
Well, you won't keep the money. The money will go out into the community
the way it's supposed to.
You're doing good things.
Absolutely.
Because if you do keep that money, you will not be getting money.
No, that's not what
I know that's not what But I guess if I were to summarize, which is always interesting for me to try and summarize, but I would say that evaluation, a lot of times it's like one of the last things that you fill out in a grant when you're really tired and the grant may be due and you're just working behind the 8 ball or whatever. But it's actually something much like sustainability and some other topics that it's worth it, just overall exploration. If you are working, and obviously we're talking about programs here versus, equipment or other kinds of things, building in, if you already know that you're going to need to write grants for these programs, now's a good time to talk about evaluation, not at 4:30 when the grant's due at 5.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the better prepared that you are from information that you have gotten from the program officers, direct service providers, the more you are able to learn and fashion that together, the better your answer is going to be, but more importantly, the better examined your program is going to be, whether it's something really simple or something super complicated.
Absolutely. And speaking of evaluations, since that's what we've talked about today, now that we're 100 episodes in, and we've established that we're here to stay, we'd really love some feedback about the show.
And we're so glad that you continue and have continued. And if you have listened to every episode of the show, you need to send us an email at fundraisinghayday@gmail.com, or you need to find us on Twitter or something, because I got to know that. I want to know what, and I feel like we need to do something for these people, but I don't know it yet. But that would be amazing. I of course have listened to every episode, but it's kind of
more than once, probably.
It's not my job. But seriously though, whether you've listened to 1 or 100, if you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts, if that's where you're finding us. Leave a review, leave us some stars. I'm hoping it's going to be 5, but do what the Spirit tells you to do. If you're on Spotify, you can follow us. You can let your friends and colleagues know about the show.
We met a fabulous lady recently from New Hampshire that she says that she sends out like grant e-newsletters.
Oh, I subscribe to her newsletter. She sends out our stuff, and it's great. That's great. It's free. Get it out there.
Yes.
But if you cannot get enough of that HayDay stuff, I'm sorry, but no, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. I think it's great. You can visit our new website, HayDay Services, HayDay services.com. Sign up for our newsletter and know about all the wonderful things that we are going to be doing together, all of us, in the years to come.
Thank you again to our Season 6 sponsor, D.H. Leonard Consulting and Grant Writing Services. We appreciate their support in making grants less stressful. Visit their website, dhleonardconsulting.com, to download their latest resources today. We're so honored you chose to spend time with us today. Be sure to join us for our next episode in 2 weeks. We're going to be talking with a colleague of mine from Dickerson Baker about major donors and working in the faith-based space.
Absolutely. Interesting stuff.
It'll be good stuff. So
no glitter will probably be involved.
No, I
But
don't
that's
think
okay.
so.
It'll be great information.
But Glitter was fabulous today for our
Oh.
100th episode. So thanks for being here with us for so long.
Bye.